Everyone, so this is my reflection vlog for the informative speech. So let's just jump right into the questions. Number 1, what was the specific purpose for this speech project? Why was it included in our course? I think the purpose of the speech project was to improve our research skills, learning to correctly cite our references, and just overall improving our speech abilities and skills. How did you feel going into the speech presentation and why? I felt confident going into this speech because I had done my research, I had credible sources, I had practiced before I presented, so yeah, I felt confident going into it. Did you experience any speaker anxiety? Why? What could you do to reduce speaker anxiety next time you give a presentation? I had some anxiety just because I knew I was recording myself and I knew that if I messed up I would have to start all over again. To reduce that anxiety next time, I would just make sure that I had memorized everything that I needed to know so that when it got to that point it was just easy for me to say it and I wouldn't have to worry about messing up. Was your technology adequately prepared? What could be done differently or better? It was prepared as far as the software goes. I have the latest software for the Mac, but for whatever reason, every time I try to upload the presentations to D2L, it refuses to do it. So I have to figure out a way to make that work. In terms of structure and organization, what element felt natural to you and what felt odd? What felt natural for me was just talking about the topics in my presentation, just because I felt confident, I knew I had done my research, I knew what I was going to say. As far as what was odd for me was the conclusion, just because in everyday life, people don't say in conclusion to whatever you had just said. So it's just odd for me to say it in that way when in day-to-day life you don't say in conclusion after you've just talked about something. How did you consider your audience when developing your speech? I considered my audience when developing my speech because I wrote it as if the people that were going to be listening to my speech had no idea about the topic that I was going to be talking about. That way I was able to write it in a more detailed manner so that when I did do my presentation, it was more detailed and had more information, and it was easier to understand for somebody who didn't go into this knowing all about what I was going to be talking about. What did you do in your speech that worked? What didn't work? What areas can you target for improvement? What worked for me was to practice what I was going to say before I said it, just so I knew there was a better chance that I wouldn't trip up on words when I got to them. I was prepared, I knew what was ahead when I was talking, so that there was a better chance that I wouldn't mess up and have to redo it. For improvement, I can make my voice a little less formal. I have a hard time talking casually to a laptop and knowing that it's recording me. For whatever reason, I just feel like I need to be more of a professional voice, when I think that if I can do it in a more casual voice, it would sound more natural. In at least 4 to 5 complete sentences, connect your learning experiences to a class reading and concept. Include at least one specific chapter with a page number from the section to which you are referring. Okay, so for me it goes back to chapter 1 when it talks about the models of communication on page 24 and 25, just because you know, when you're making a presentation, you have to think about everything. You have to think about the background noises to avoid, how the listeners might perceive your message, how your voice might come across, learning to get rid of those nervous habits, because I know I do say a lot when I'm talking, and that's even for in my natural day-to-day life as well. So that's something that I have to work on. But when I think of connecting this presentation to the readings, it definitely does go back to those models that you have to know when preparing for it so that you can learn to avoid the mistakes and improve on the things that should be improved on. So that is my reflection vlog over the informational speech. Thank you for listening.